We recently listed a beautiful home that had been listed with another broker here in Austin. That home sat on the market for 6 months without a single offer. Same house, same price, same great floor plan. Then, after the correct plan was put in place, the right steps taken, and the right approach, it sold in 1 weekend with 2 full price offers. Nothing about the house itself had changed. What changed was how it was presented. Let me tell you exactly what we did, because it's the difference between a home that languishes on the market and one that sells. Hi, I'm Linda Welsh with Linda Welsh Realty Group at Compass, and I've been selling homes in Austin for quite a while. This is one of my favorite stories because it's not an extraordinary situation. It's something we can all relate to. It's one that almost every seller can relate to. The sellers called me after their listing had expired. It wasn't my listing originally. It was a lovely home, right around $1 million, which isn't unusual here in the Austin area. A home with a great floor plan, in very good condition, in a very nice neighborhood, with lots of living area, a huge study. The comp showed that it was priced in the right price range, but the problem was that it sat on the market for 6 months with no offers. Now, here's how I think about it. There are things we can control and things that we can't control. We can't control interest rates, the headlines, the wider market. And right now, that market matters because more than half of the homes listed in Austin are sitting long enough that their sellers, in most cases, end up reducing the price. The 2 things that we can control are marketing and marketability, how a home is presented, and how and when buyers get to see it. So I walked through that house and I could see exactly what was holding it back. The first thing I saw was the presentation. The sellers were still living there with some dated furniture, some heavy furniture, some big brown inherited pieces, the kind a lot of us have, right? A beautiful home, but it just wasn't showing like one. So I convinced the sellers to let us stage the main rooms, the formal living room, the formal dining room, and the breakfast room. And here's a little secret. We just moved their old furniture into the garage. Nobody photographs the garage, and nobody cares, as long as the inspector could get to the mechanicals. Then we hired the right stagers who brought in the right furniture for this specific house. And I want to stress right because I matched the stager to the home. A newer, mid-range priced home with simpler lines might call for a trendy, bohemian look. This was a large traditional family home, so we brought in traditional pieces. When we finished, it looked like you'd walked into the showroom of a fine furniture store. Same house, completely different feeling. Now, let me stop and be practical here, because I know what agents and sellers are thinking. Staging costs money. It does. A staging job like this usually runs somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,500 to $4,500 minimum. And in a slower market, a lot of people assume that's just not in the budget. But here's what most people don't realize. You have options. Sometimes the seller pays for it directly. Some stagers will actually take their payment at closing, and some brokerages offer a concierge credit card service that is based on equity on the home and has a low interest rate to be used for items such as painting, staging, new flooring, or landscaping that are tied to the presentation and sale of their home. A credit line that can cover those expenses up front, which the seller then pays back at closing. The point is, don't let the sticker price scare you off, because staging is not an expense. It's an investment that pays for itself. Think about it. These sellers had already paid 6 months of mortgage payments on a house that wasn't selling. That's the real cost of skipping a presentation that helps sell their home at the right price. But presentation isn't only about the inside. Let me give you 2 more pieces. Outside that home had a back raised patio that sat up high over a sloping yard looking straight at the neighbors' properties on either side. So we brought in heavy weighted outdoor draperies on rods that created a private little sitting area, blocking those views and turning an awkward space into a selling feature. And then there's the marketing itself. We had it professionally photographed, and I cannot stress this enough. It drives me crazy to see $1 million homes with amateur photos. Then we marketed hard. We held back-to-back open houses that first weekend. We placed targeted Facebook ads aimed at the cities people are actually moving to Austin from. And yes, we can find that migration pattern. And I personally reached out to other agents who'd sold homes in that area over the past 2 years. They often know the next buyer or the one who missed out on another sale. So we put it back on the market at the exact same price it had come off on. And that very weekend, after our 2 open houses, we received 2 full price offers. So here's what I want you to take away. Nothing about that house itself changed. Same home, same price, same market. The only thing that changed was the presentation. Online with beautiful photography and in person when buyers walked through the door. When a home is presented in its very best light from that first day, buyers see it and they act. Attack it up front and you don't spend another 6 months slowly reducing your price. That's especially true in a market like ours right now, where more than half of Austin sellers are reducing their price because their homes aren't showing the way they should at a price point that makes sense. If you're thinking about selling and you want a home that sells instead of sits, I'd love to walk through it with you and show you exactly what we do. Reach out anytime. Let's get it sold right the first time.